Hello, good people of YouTube, Mount Ben here, and today I am doing a requested video, as requested by, I believe the way you say his YouTube name is No Block Praetorian, and he asked me in the comment section, he's grinded up to the Bismarck. It was his first tier 8, but then he went and he grinded up to the Yamato, and now he's coming back and he's thinking about finishing off the German battleship line, and his question to me was, I've got the Bismarck, and I'm thinking about going on to the Grosse Kurfürst, which I absolutely recommend. Kurfürst is an amazing ship. She is fun to play, and her secondaries, if you like brawling, she's the perfect ship for brawling at high tier. But he asked me what he asked me in the comment section. You can go back to, I believe it was on the Daddy Kurfürst video, and he asked, should I sell Bismarck so I can afford to get FDG? And then Evangeline, who is a subscriber that regularly comments on pretty much all of my videos, and I appreciate that he or she does that. And she or he, I don't know, whatever, it's the internet. You can be an Apache attack helicopter if you want to. And Evangeline said, no, the FDG's not really worth it, and the Grosse Kurfürst, while it is a fun ship, it's not really good in ranked or clan battles. And to that I have to say, yeah, the Kurfürst really isn't the most ideal ship for clan battles or ranked. And personally, though, if I get to tier 10, I will be using, if I get to the high enough in rank that I get to use tier 10, I will be using Grosse Kurfürst because it's the ship, the tier 10 battleship that I'm most comfortable in. And I generally do well in Kurfürst, So, me personally, I'm going to use it. I might switch over to Montana because of her guns are a bit more, well, not a bit more accurate, they're a lot more accurate. But overall, I do feel more comfortable in Kurfürst than any of the other tier 10s. Now, then Evangeline proceeded to go on to about how the FDG, and, like Evangeline said, FDG, Evangeline said that, and hers opinion, whatever, that the FDG was the worst tier 9, and you shouldn't sell Bismarck for it. I agree with not selling Bismarck for FDG, but I don't agree with FDG being the worst tier 9. I believe that honor is still firmly in Isamo's hands. Now, this is all my opinion. This is all, and Evangeline's opinion is Evangeline's opinion. I'm not going to get all bent out of shape about it. We can all have different opinions and still get along. I don't know when the human race forgot that you can have different opinions and get along, but apparently in the past 5 or so years, this seems to have happened. Now, I have a best tier 9 battleship video, and it's in a list format, and FDG is toward the end of that list because, in my opinion, FDG is kind of where the German battleship line does slump a bit. Does that mean it's the worst tier 9? No, I certainly do not think that, as I said before. But the reason I think the FDG is where the German battleship line kind of slumps a bit is because you go from Bismarck, this is Bismarck, which is a fantastic ship. She is a great tier 8 battleship, incredibly fun to play. And, I can count my grievances with Bismarck on half of one hand, It's torpedo protection and its accuracy. That's my grievances with Bismarck, and that's it. Now you go up to FDG. For all intents and purposes, it is a bigger Bismarck. And no, like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. I can count my problems with Bismarck on one hand. However, I can on half of one hand. However, I can count my grievances with FDG on the rest of that one hand. Okay, so let's take a look at FDG. I'll start out with the cons, and then I'll move into the pros. Cons: you only get 8 guns at tier 9. That's not a lot of guns to be having at tier 9, especially with 2 guns per turret and 4 turrets. So the maximum amount of guns you can have on target if you're bow tanking or stern tanking is 4 guns. Which, these are of course German guns, so they are not very accurate. They are more accurate than Bismarck, but not by a whole lot. And I mean, in order to get all these guns on target, you have to show a fair amount of broadside, which means you're going to get pinned or set on fire, but most likely set on fire. I mean, you will get pinned pretty bad too. I have countless videos of me and Kerr First and Yamato just absolutely slapping FDGs in the face when they show their broadside. But I mean, you are supposed to be punished when you show your broadside anyway, but it just stings a little bit more in the FDG because you're trying to get all your guns on target. So before we get into any more of the stats, I'm going to show you the build that I have on the FDG. So as far as the modules go, I run Auxiliary Armaments Mod 1, Damage Con 1, Secondary Mod 2, Damage Con 2, Concealment, and Secondary Mod 3. As you can tell, this is a completely secondary build FDG. And that's the same carries on over to the Captain. I got Preventative Maintenance, MLG turrets, BFT, and AFT, and I'm going for Adrenaline Rush next. This Captain was on my turret pits, but when I bought FDG back, I went and moved him over to the FDG. And this is a fully upgraded FDG. We are at, the B hull, and I do choose the 420mm guns over the 406 guns because I like the bigger punch of the 420s. So let's go take a look at our armor. And this is the part that I have to disagree with Evangeline on, because he said since the Ismo buff, since it's got that 50mm of deck, 57mm of deck armor, he or she or Apache attack helicopter, whatever, thinks that it is a superior battleship to the FDG. Well, let's take a look at the FDG's armor. There's a sliver of 32mm of deck armor here and here, but then you get 50, 80mm, 50mm, 80mm, 50, 32, 32. Now that is pretty dang good deck armor, except for right here. This is acceptable to long-range plunging AP fire from battleships, which means you can go straight through and then get at the Citadel. But I mean, really, you shouldn't be that far out in the FDG, because the FDG is very much not a sniping battleship. She is very much a brawler. Let's take a look at her side armor. You got 145, 235, and then a 300. And then her torpedo bulges are 38mm. So pretty thick side armor. If you keep that angled, you'll be doing fine in brawls. And also her bow armor, you get a sliver of 60mm of bow armor, which means, Yamato cannot pin this, but it can pin here and here. So I do think this, the FDG's armor is superior to Ismo's. Let's go take a look at Ismo. Okay, so 32mm of armor, Yamato's going to go straight through that. 32mm of armor, a huge section of deck is just exposed to, AP is going to go, AP, of course AP is going to go through this. HE is going to go straight through this. Now 57mm of deck armor, that is all very, very nice. And, kind of says screw you to HE. But then 32mm of armor. And her side armor, she does have a big old chunk of 356mm of belt armor right there. But then 32, and 38 on the torpedo bulges. And then 32 back here, and then another sliver of 305. So while this section of side armor is pretty dang thick on Ismo, I just think that overall the FDG does have better armor. Let's go back on over to the FDG. Also, survivability wise, she has 84,000 hit points. That's the most out of the other tier 9 battleships. Ismo's got, I believe, 78,000. Iowa has 79,000. Alsace has 74,000, and Lion, I don't have Lion anymore, but it's a British battleship, and the British battleship flavor is that they have less HP than their other tier 9 counterparts, so it has the most HP out of all the tier 9 battleships. So that's all the stats I really want to go over with you guys in port, and I'm going to talk to you, give you the rest of my opinions on FDG with some B-roll for in combat. Alright, so my overall opinion of the FDG is that It very much follows the tier 9 formula that Wargaming is going for, in that going from the tier 8, they give you a really nice tier 8 battleship. I mean, look at the Amagi, the Bismarck, the, well, maybe not the Richelieu, and maybe not the Monarch either. But once you get from those, most of those pretty nice tier 8 battleships, you get to the tier 9 battleships, and they're a bit underwhelming, and that's how I would describe the FDG, is underwhelming. And again, that's why in my best tier 9 battleships video, she is toward the rear of the list rather being toward the front of the list. And that says a lot for me because I really love German battleships, and yeah, I put one toward the rear of a top 5, or I guess it would be a top, however many tier 9 battleships there are, video. And the ship is frustrating to use. It's a real frustrating learning curve, and you just kind of have to accept when you're playing the FDG that it's not just a battleship's role to do damage. You know, you can tank, you can support your cruisers and destroyers with secondary fire, and the thing that the FDG is definitely good at is tanking. She has the right armor layout for it, you know, with that 60mm plate she has in her bow. She's got the health for it, you know, with 84,000 health, the most out of the other tier 10s. And you can definitely support your cruisers and destroyers with some nice secondary fire. And if you get in close, you can smack the absolute crap out of other battleships. The FDG, if you have her, if you grind through her right now, definitely stay away from open water, because these 8 guns are not very accurate. They very much still have German dispersion. And there's a clip in here where I'm running at an island about one, and I fire at him from like freaking 4 kilometers away, and the shells from one of my turrets, it's like they go as far away from each other as they possibly can in the distance it takes to get to the target, because oh my god, does this ship have horrible dispersion. And that's why I said you gotta stay in close, stay near the islands, don't go in open water. Now, is it the worst tier 9? Again, no, it is not, in my opinion, because as much as I struggle to do damage in FDG, I struggle much more in Ismo to do damage. And if you're thinking about getting to FDG and thinking about, you know, selling Bismarck to get her, don't. Just don't. Because while it's not an absolutely terrible tier 9, it's certainly a frustrating tier 9, and definitely not worth selling the Bismarck to get. But is it trash? No, I don't think so. It's just really frustrating. You have a really big learning curve with it, and it's just kind of like, you know, you've been playing the Bismarck for so long, you get to the FDG, you're ready for something different. It's just more Bismarck, but in my opinion, they didn't really give her enough to warrant this really being an upgrade from Bismarck. It's a slight upgrade from Bismarck, in my opinion, because if you get a tier 9 game in this thing, you are going to rock. Unless there's an aircraft carrier around, then you're going to get either AP bombed or burned to death. Because when you're top tier in this thing, it feels really good because you can charge at those tier 7 ships all day and laugh as you drive by and delete them. So it's a real difficult call for me to make, because, as I've said before, I love German battleships, I love brawling, and the FDG is good at brawling, do not get me wrong, the FDG is real good at brawling, but tier 9 and tier 10 gameplay is very, very snipey, and when you have very inaccurate guns with a 20km max range, it is frustrating. Like the Kurfürst, what helps with the Kurfürst a lot is that it has a 3rd gun in every turret rather than just 2 guns per turret, so you are throwing more stuff at the enemy battleships versus the FDG where you're only throwing 8 shells at the enemy battleships. So that's my opinion on the FDG. I mean, it's just kind of one of those things where you just got to get through it to get to the Kurfürst, and I think the Kurfürst is absolutely worth it. It's the FDG. It's much better than having to grind through Ismo to get to the Yamato. So I'll leave it at that. And again, this is all my opinion, and I'm not hating on Evangeline for disagreeing with me and saying that the Ismo is better than the FDG. That's his or her opinion, and I'm fine with it. We can all have different opinions. We are all civilized people. So I'll leave it at that. So again, thank you all so very much for watching. If you like the video, drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe. We are on our way to, oh God, we're on our way to 700 now, because we absolutely just smashed through the 600. And guys, I can't thank you guys enough for that. And there should have been a thank you for 600 video that went up yesterday. So again, thank you all so very, very much for that. I'll catch all of you in the next one.